So here I have set up a grid that now is using 6 boxes, which we can see spread out across here. But as we see, they're spread out in this funny way where it looks like the first box and the second box have plenty of room, and then we start squishing these boxes in here. To understand this behavior, we can look at the code. Here in grid template rows, I've set the first row to be 350 pixels, the second row to be 350 pixels, and then the third row, I'm using 1FR. 1FR, it denotes taking up the rest of the available space. So the available space is figured out by taking the height of your container, which I have set to 100 viewport height, subtracting from it the space you've already used, which would be anything in a row and the grid gap. And then 1FR is leaving room for anything else. So after we've taken up all of our 350 pixels, our 350 pixels, and our grid gap twice of 15px, it smushes the rest of it into our last row, which is why we can see here it starts to smush at the bottom. But 1FR cannot be used more than once. I could split it up, and I could say I want it to be 350 pixels, 350 pixels, and then twice to go through and split up the space evenly. Now it would look like this. But get this. We don't need to use pixels at all. Here, I'm setting up columns, 7 columns that each use 1FR. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to take away the 7th because now we only have 6 elements. But this is saying to divide up evenly 1FR for each of them, the columns. So here we can see now we have 6 equal columns coming across our boxes. Let's make the background a little darker to make it easier to see. My favorite hex value in the world, 444. And we'll make the color, this is from Edward Tufte's suggestion, of FFFFF8, which is a slightly off-white. And let's make it a little easier to see with a bigger font size. Now we can see our columns spread evenly. But let's be honest. Going through and writing 1FR 6 times is a lot of work. And programming is supposed to automate a lot of our work for us. This is where the repeat function comes in. These 2 lines of code do the exact same thing. I'll prove it to you. Let's comment out this, and we'll leave our repeat function. It's 7 when we want it to be 6, remember. And now we have 6 boxes spread out evenly by using repeat. Repeat, it takes the number of times we want it to repeat, which is 6 for us because we have 6 elements, and then the size. So I'm saying repeat 1FR, which means the rest of the available space 6 times. I could also use repeat with pixels. 25 pixels is pretty small, but you can see I've repeated 6 times the column. Let's do something that looks a tiny bit less bizarre. So by using repeat, we can automate the creation of our grid template columns. Now, let's talk about rows. If you think about it, when you're doing web development, there's often times where you're going to want an infinite number of rows, or as many rows as there is content. Think about the way a Facebook feed works. You just continue to go down and down and down. So it's not like you're setting the number of rows initially. The number of rows need to develop from the amount of content you have. Luckily for us, CSS Grid makes this fairly easy with the grid auto rows syntax. Grid auto rows replaces grid template rows. And in this instance, we're going to use grid auto rows with min-max. Now, min-max works similarly to repeat, right? Repeat took 2 values. Min-max takes 2 values. The first is a minimum value that each row must be. So this is saying that each row has to be at least 100 pixels, and at most is auto. So what auto will do is auto will let it be as big as its content, holds. So if we have giant letters, then it'll be a much taller row. But they have to be at least 100 pixels. Let's take a look at what this looks like in our code. So here we can see now that we have very, very evenly made rows just by using min-max. So now let's try to put together the grid auto rows using min-max and grid template columns using 1FR. We've set up our columns to have 2 columns, each of them taking up half of the available space left. And we've set up our rows to be as many rows as we need to fit each element in the 2 columns, between 50 pixels and 135 pixels. So what would happen if we added another column? We could see that it adjusts perfectly. So now we have 3 columns and 2 rows. We could continue doing this, or we could try using repeat. Let's say for 1FR. And now we can see that it has gone into 4 columns and the boxes adjust accordingly. This is an example of how you can use min-max with grid auto rows and repeat with columns to create fancy auto magic grids. Good luck doing this on your own. I believe in you.